Picture the most expensive dinner ever laid on a table. Gold plates. Actual gold, thousands of pieces of it. Enough to serve 100 people and blind them at the same time. 9 courses written out in French on little cards. Soup, fish, cutlets, chicken, roast, game, sweets, ices, dessert. Candlelight running down a table nearly 200 feet long. Had the smell of hothouse gardenias, the smell of hot wax, the smell of clear turtle soup arriving under silver domes. Add a duchess in diamonds, a field marshal in medals, an ambassador who crossed Europe for this exact evening. Now take the food away from them before they can eat it. Not as a joke, not once, every night, as a rule. Written nowhere, enforced everywhere. Understood by every person in the room, except, occasionally, some poor first-time guest who's about to learn it the hard way. Fork in the air, plate already gone. That's dinner with Queen Victoria, the most sought-after invitation in the world, and the surest way in the British Empire for a rich, powerful, well-fed human being to go to bed hungry. A place where you could eat off gold and starve at the same table. A place where the servants below stairs ate better, longer and hotter meals than the dukes above them. We're going back there tonight. Not as guests. Guests are the victims here. And anyway, guests only ever saw half of it. We're going in livery. 1 year, 1 pair of white gloves. Everything the man carrying the plates would have seen, smelled, heard, and bitten back. So, I make these history stories, and honestly, I've stopped trying to guess whether anyone actually sleeps to them, or whether you're all just weirdos who enjoy hearing about starving admirals watching their soup sail away into a pantry. Either way, subscribe if you feel like it. Get comfortable. Here we go. 1 honest word before the doors open, because this channel runs on you trusting me. The rooms in this story are real, the dates are real, the menus, the rules, the half-hour dinners, the gold plate, the distances the food travelled. All of it documented, and where a story comes from courtier gossip rather than the record, I'll say so out loud. But the footman whose gloves you're about to wear is stitched together from many pairs of hands. Nobody wrote down the name of every young man who stood against that wall, so tonight the household lends you a body. Real duties, real rooms, real rules, borrowed eyes. That's the deal. I'll always tell you which is which. Hold out your hands. You hold out your hands. Mr. Aldous takes your right wrist and turns it under the candle, and for 3 full seconds the only sound in the serving corridor is the tick of the pantry clock and 40 men breathing through their noses. He is looking for a mark on the white cotton of your glove, a thumb smudge, a grease ghost, anything. It's 13 minutes to 9 on a June evening in 1896. You're standing in a stone corridor in Windsor Castle with a napkin over your forearm, and in a few minutes the Queen of England, Empress of India, will sit down to a 9-course dinner that will be over in about half an hour, and you have not eaten since 2 o'clock, and neither, though they don't know it yet, have most of her guests eaten their last proper meal of the day. Turn, Aldous says. You turn your wrist. The glove passes. He moves to the next man without a word, and you let your breath out slowly, the way you've learned to, so it doesn't stir the candle flames. And when I say inspection, I need you to understand what that means in this household. This isn't a boss glancing over your shoulder. This is a man who has served 3 decades under this roof examining the seams of your gloves, the powder in your hair, the buckles at your knees, the exact fall of the scarlet and gold state livery across your shoulders, because in 11 minutes you will stand within 6 feet of the most powerful woman on earth, and the entire point of view is that she must never, not once, have a reason to notice you exist. You are furniture that breathes. That's the job. That's the whole job. Your name, the name the household lends you tonight, is William Carr. You're 19. You came here 8 months ago, in October of 1895, from a village outside King's Lynn in Norfolk, because you were tall, which sounds like joke and isn't. Footmen are hired by the inch. Tall, straight, matched in pairs like carriage horses, and paid partly for their height. Back home, your mother told everyone her son was going to wait on the Queen, and everyone said the Queen's men must eat like kings. They weren't entirely wrong. They just had the timing all wrong. You'll get to that. The corridor smells of 3 things, layered. Hot candle wax first, because the sconces have been burning since 7. Then the flat, faintly sour smell of the powder in your hair. Footmen at state dinners still powder, a paste of soap and flour dust that dries your scalp tight and itches behind your ears, and you're paid a small allowance a year extra just for ruining your hair with it, and by the end of a hot night it smells like a bakery floor. And under both of those, riding up the corridor in slow waves every time the pantry door swings, the smell of the soup. Clear turtle soup tonight, and a white soup beside it. Because there are always 2. It's been travelling. That's the thing nobody outside these walls ever quite believes. The great kitchen of Windsor Castle is a very long way from the room where the food is eaten. Down one corridor, upstairs, along another corridor, through door after door after door. The men who carry it call the route the run. Call it the better part of a 1/4 of a mile of stone draughts and swinging bays there and back, dish after dish covered, hurried, cooling with every step, warm plates, cold food. You heard that from Joe Brant your first week, said Flat, like a law of nature. Joe is the man standing on your left now, 2 years your senior in service, jaw absolutely still, eyes forward, murmuring without moving his lips the way only footmen and ventriloquists can. 29 minutes, Joe breathes. I'm telling you, she's got the Ascot party at table and she'll want a whist after. 29. He means the dinner, 9 courses. He's betting you a 6pence the whole thing is done in under 30 minutes, soup to dessert. And the terrible thing, the thing you couldn't have explained to a single soul in Norfolk, is that he's probably right, and you'll be able to check him to the minute, because directly over the door of the serving room hangs the pantry clock, an old 8-day wall clock with a brass face gone the colour of weak tea, and it is the one clock in this castle that the footmen live and die by. Courses are timed by it. Runs to the kitchen are timed by it. Aldous winds it himself every Sunday with a key he keeps on his watch chain and trusts to nobody, and he has a saying about it that you will hear perhaps 200 times this year. That clock, Aldous says, is the only honest thing at dinner. You didn't understand that when you arrived. You understand it a little more every night. Somewhere beyond the double doors a sound starts that still lifts the hair on your arms after 8 months. The corridor filling. Not a crowd sound. Nothing so loud. A rustle. Silk moving on silk. Sword slings clicking softly against buttons. Low voices pitched carefully down. Because everybody in that gallery knows the Queen's own voice is quiet and nobody dares be louder than she is before they've even sat down. Out there, 40 guests are being sorted. And I do mean sorted. Nobody strolls into dinner with Queen Victoria. Nobody chooses a seat. Every person in that gallery has been weighed, ranked and paired by precedence. The iron arithmetic of who outranks whom, and they will walk into St. George's Hall 2 by 2 in exact order, like a very expensive schoolroom, dukes before earls, earls before barons, ambassadors slotted in by seniority, each gentleman giving his arm to the precise lady. The Lord Chamberlain's office has assigned him and not one rung higher. You know the order because you've seen the plan. That's another thing the guests never see. Down in the master of the household's office there hangs a board, and on it, in chalk, the shape of tonight's table, every cover drawn as a little arc, every name written above its arc in a small, fierce hand. The seating plan is chalk because dinner is politics, and politics changes by the hour. A name goes up, a name is rubbed out with the heel of a palm, a whole side of the table shifts one place to the left, and the smear of half-erased earls on that black board looks, Joe says, like God's own rough workings. Lord Edward Pelham Clinton, master of the household these 2 years past, stands before that board of an afternoon the way other men stand before a chessboard, and when it's wrong, it is your legs that pay, because somebody has to run and relay the covers, remember the board, remember the clock. You'll meet them both again on the biggest night of your life, but that's next summer's story. Tonight is just dinner, which is like saying a battle is just an evening walk with guns. Doors, says Aldous, and the doors open, and the light of St. George's Hall comes out at you like something physical. Gold on gold on gold, and the procession begins to move, and at the far end of it, small, in black silk and the ribbon of the garter, walking with a stick and at her own pace while an empire holds its breath around her. The Queen. You straighten your back until it aches. Here we go indeed. St. George's Hall is the landmark of your life now, and it is worth 30 seconds of standing still inside your own skin, because you will never stand still in it again tonight. Nearly 200 feet of room, a ceiling ribbed and blazoned with the arms of every knight of the Garter since the order began. And the order began in 1348, which means the paint over your head is keeping score of 5.5 centuries of ambition. The table runs down the middle of it tonight with covers for 40, and on the table stands the reason half these guests accepted. The grand service. Silver gilt. 4,000 pieces of it in the vaults, they say, begun for George IV in the 1820s, when that king was pouring money into these walls like a man trying to drown history in gilt, and when the full weight of it comes out, candelabra, wine coolers, mirrored plateaus down the spine of the table, the light doesn't reflect so much as multiply. You have seen scullery girls near tears over the polishing rotors for it. You have heard Joe swear that on a full state night you can read a menu card by the shine off a single soup tureen. And the menu cards are out. Thick cream stock, the royal arms at the head, and the whole of dinner written in French, because dinner in this world speaks French even when the cook is from Berkshire. Potages, poissons, entrée, relevé, raw, entremet, a column of promises, 9 courses. The guests read them the way you once read the bill of fare outside a Lynn chop house with 3pence in your pocket, wanting everything, about to get almost none of it. Because here is the rule that explains this entire night, this entire reign of dinners, the rule that no card mentions and no equerry will say aloud, and the rule your evening has already promised you. Nobody eats after the Queen. It works like this. Her Majesty is served first, always, before anyone, whatever the course. And when Her Majesty has finished a course, not when the table has finished, when she has, the course is over. The plates are removed. All of them. Every plate on that table, full, half full, untouched, mid-mouthful, it does not matter. When the Queen's knife and fork go down, the footmen move, and the food goes back down the corridor it came up, and the next course begins its run. That is simple etiquette, old as courts. The sovereign sets the pace of the table. At most courts in history it never much mattered, because most sovereigns lingered. Queen Victoria eats fast, not carelessly, not daintily. How she eats is a story told below other stairs, and it is not tonight's story. At this table, what you see is simply speed. A small woman in her late 70s with the appetite of a healthy sergeant and no earthly reason to wait for anybody, going through 9 courses the way a good clerk goes through the Morning Post. The household has timed it for years, quietly, on the pantry clock. A full dinner, soup to dessert in half an hour. Some nights less. The old men speak of dinners that came in under 25 minutes, and they speak of them the way sailors speak of storms. Do the arithmetic. You do it every night now, standing at the wall, because arithmetic is one of the few entertainments available to furniture. 9 courses into 30 minutes is a shade over 3 minutes a course. Now subtract from each course the serving of it. 40 guests, served at speed by the flight of you along the walls. Call it 2 minutes gone before the last guest is even looking at food. Now remember that the Queen, at the head, was served first and began at once. She's under no obligation to wait, and waiting has never been among her gifts. By the time the sole in cream sauce is set down in front of the poor Baroness at the far end, and she has lifted her fork with a remark half out of her mouth, Her Majesty is well into her own portion and finishing it, which means the Baroness gets, if she is quick and quiet and rude enough to eat instead of answering her neighbour, perhaps 4 bites, then your moment. Aldous never signals with his voice at table. It's the flat of his hand low at his side, and then the walls move, and the plates come up, and the Baroness's soul. 1 bite gone from it, the fork actually resting on the fish, rises from under her face and is gone, and she does the thing they all do, the new ones, the small startled lift of the head, the half-turn after the vanishing plate, the opening of the mouth, and then the closing of it. Because her neighbour, an old hand, is sitting with his hands folded and his face perfectly serene, having eaten nothing at all and expected nothing at all, and one glance at him teaches her the whole constitution of this table. You could not really dine here. Well, you could, but you'd need the hands of a conjurer and the conscience of a pickpocket. You'd need to eat while appearing to listen, swallow while appearing to smile, and abandon every mouthful the instant a small hand at the head of the table went still. Less a dinner than feeding time at a very beautiful zoo where the keepers take the food away. Something like that was muttered by more than one guest of the era, well out of doors and well out of earshot, and it comes to us as table talk remembered in memoirs, so take it at memoir strength. But stand at this wall one night and you'd say it too. The soup teaches you everything in the first 4 minutes of the night. Watch it once, properly, and you'll never need telling again. The tureens come up the run under domes, and the ladles go to work in the serving room, and you go down the wall with your pair, plate after plate, turtle or white, and the guests incline their heads a half-inch left or right, because at this table even choosing is done in silence. The smell rises off the plates as you carry them, beef stock and sherry and something green and faintly sweet under it, and your stomach, empty since 2 o'clock, turns over with a low animal growl that you kill by pressing your elbow into your ribs. Yeah, you're starving too. That's normal. Every man on this wall is hungry. The footman's supper comes after the Queen's dinner, always has. You serve food for a living on an empty stomach the way sailors live surrounded by water they can't drink. At the head of the table the Queen takes her soup. It goes, spoon after spoon, steady as a metronome, while an Indian attendant in scarlet and a white turban stands motionless behind her chair. The Indian servants came into the household after the Golden Jubilee of 1887, and their presence behind her at dinner is as fixed now as the candles. And the guests to her left and right lean carefully in, because she speaks quietly, and a table where the head speaks quietly is a table with the volume of a church. 3 minutes, perhaps 3.5. The spoon goes down, hand flat, walls move, soup is over. 40 plates, most of them still warm, most of them still half full, come off that table in something under 90 seconds, stacking up your forearm in the pattern you practiced with wooden blanks your first fortnight, and you're through the doors, and behind you the fish is already coming up the corridor, and the first thing you see in the serving room is the pantry clock saying 7 minutes past 9, and the second thing you see is the soup going back. Gallons of turtle soup that cost more than your father earned in a season, sliding tureen by tureen into the dark of the run. Eyes, murmurs Joe, passing you shoulder to shoulder, a tower of plates on his arm, meaning don't look at it, meaning everyone looks at it the first year. Course follows course like waves on a beach with the tide coming in fast. The soul. The cutlets in their paper frills. A relevé of beef, and here is one of the strangest sights in Europe. Apart from the French procession of the menu, there stands at every Windsor dinner, on the sideboard, a great joint of cold roast beef, English and enormous, attended by its own carver, because the table of the kings of England has offered roast beef since before anyone can find the reason written down. Mostly it stands there like a monument, and at the end of the night it is carried back down the run barely touched. A week of a labourer's dinners in one joint, the chickens, the game, and the pace never once slackens, because the pace is not set by appetite or courtesy or the kitchen. The pace is one small black silk figure at the head of the table, and the pace is brisk, and every guest at that table, men who command fleets, women who command counties, has by the fourth course entered into the same silent occupation as the footman, watching the Queen's fork out of the corner of one eye and calculating. The talkers suffer worst. That's the cruelty with geometry in it. To be seated near the Queen is the highest honour of the table, and the Queen may speak to you, and if she speaks to you, you must answer. You do not speak until spoken to. That is the iron of it. And while you are answering, you cannot eat, and while you are not eating, she is, and her plate empties while yours sits, and when hers is empty, both of them are finished. The price of the honour is the dinner. The furthest, dullest seat at the table is the best fed one, and everybody knows it, and nobody would trade up table for a full stomach, and you stand at the wall watching the most powerful people in the world choose hunger over obscurity every single night. That, more than the gold, is the thing you'd write home about if you could write home about anything. You can't. Discretion is the first livery they fitted you for. Dessert. Pineapples from the royal frames, hothouse grapes, the little glasses. The Queen takes what she takes quickly. And then there is the moment you were taught to watch for on your third night, by Aldous, in the voice he saves for things that matter, her fan. Through dinner it lies by her place, black, folded, still. The older men swear by it, the way pilots swear by a change in the wind. Household law, this, passed mouth to mouth down the wall, so take it as law. But you have watched for 8 months, and the law holds. When dinner has run its course, and Her Majesty is minded to rise, the fan comes up off the cloth into her hand, a few breaths before anything else happens. The hand, then the rustle, then the whole table on its feet like a covey of partridges going up. "Watch the fan, boy," Aldous told you, "and you'll never be surprised at the Queen's table, and she'll never be kept waiting, and only one of those things matters." Tonight the fan comes up at 26 minutes past 9. The Queen rises, 40 chairs go back. The ladies follow her out in a slow tide of silk toward the drawing room. The gentlemen will get their brief allotted interval, their coffee and precious little else. The doors close, and the table sits there in the candlelight, 200 feet of gold and wreckage, like a battlefield where nobody was permitted to fight. Bread untouched, beef unfinished, a plover's egg abandoned whole. At the far end, someone's menu card has been turned face down, which is either an accident or the quietest act of rebellion in the British Empire. Joe appears at your elbow with a stack of dessert plates and his lips barely moving. 29.5, he says. "Payday, country boy." You look back through the doors at the pantry clock and he's right, and somewhere under your ribs your empty stomach files its own opinion of this entire civilization. The sixpence can wait, the clearing can't. In this house, even the leaving of food is done at the double. By 10:30 the hall is stripped. The grand service is counted back piece by piece under the eye of a man whose whole office is counting it. The cloth is drawn, and you are sitting down at last to the joke at the centre of this entire story. Your supper. Because here is the delicious upside-down truth of dinner with Queen Victoria, the truth the guests upstairs would not believe if you swore it on the castle chapel. The servants eat better than the dukes, not finer, better, hotter, longer, more, and in peace. The household below stairs runs on its own iron mealtimes, and they are generous ones, and they are honoured the way the guests' dinner is not, because no small figure in black silk sits at the head of the servants' hall setting a pace. The servants' hall dined properly at midday, meat and vegetables and beer, while the guests upstairs were picking at a luncheon they didn't dare finish. And now, with the Queen's dinner dead and cleared, comes supper. And supper tonight is what supper usually is in this castle. Whatever came back down the run. Think that through. 9 courses went up, 9 courses came back, most of them barely wounded. The etiquette that starves an ambassador feeds a footman. The Baroness's soul, 4 bites gone from the whole fish course of 40 covers, the beef, the birds, the entremets standing in their silver like troops that never saw action. The rules of the household have always been plain that what returns from the royal table, in its proper order and by its proper perquisites, is dealt out and eaten below. The grandest cold buffet in England is assembled every single night in the bowels of Windsor Castle, out of food that the most honoured guests in the world were not given time to eat, and it is eaten by us at long scrubbed tables with our collars loosened at leisure. Annie puts the plate down in front of you herself. Annie Marsh, steward's room maid, small and quick from Lincolnshire, hands permanently pink from hot water, and she has decided, you've never asked why, that the new tall one from Norfolk needs feeding. She has saved you the undercut. She always saves you the undercut. "Eat it slow," she says. "Nobody's going to ring." And you do. That's the luxury. Not the beef, though the beef is superb. It was carved off the sideboard joint that stood like a monument behind an earl who never got near it. The luxury is the slowness. 40 minutes, elbows on board, salt within reach, beer in a proper mug, the long room warm with lamp oil and gravy and 40 conversations, Joe holding up your sixpence to the light like a jeweller before pocketing it, and somewhere above your heads, at this exact moment, A general of the British Army is sitting on the edge of a state bed while his valet unpacks, very quietly, the cold chicken and rolls that any experienced valet brings to Windsor, the way he brings the shaving kit. Yet they pack food. That's normal. Nobody who has dined with the Queen twice ever comes to Windsor unprovisioned. It's a luxury nobody upstairs can afford to be seen needing, and nobody upstairs can afford to be without. You know about the valet's hampers because the valets sit at your table. You know about the ladies' maids because of the tin. The tin lives in the serving pantry on the third shelf behind the spare wicks. A plain japanned biscuit tin, and in it, always, a supply of the little sweet biscuits the confectionery bakes for the Queen's own tray. Osborne biscuits among them, name for the house, because they name biscuits after houses in this world. The tin is not on any inventory you've ever seen. Joe showed it to you your second week, the way a sexton shows a new curate where the spare key hangs. After a big dinner, Joe said, watch the pantry stairs about midnight. And it's true, and it never stops being extraordinary. On the nights of great dinners, soft knocks come at the pantry door, and there on the stairs are the ladies' maids of countesses and marchionesses, wrapped in shawls over their night-clothes, come down through a sleeping castle with the same errand and the same careful face. Her ladyship wonders, and the sentence never needs finishing. You open the tin, you wrap a half-dozen biscuits in a clean napkin. Somewhere up in the state apartments, a great lady of England, hostess of 10,000 acres, is sitting up in bed by candlelight waiting for smuggled biscuits, like a schoolgirl in a dormitory. Remember the tin, too. Tins, clocks, chalk. Kingdoms run on smaller things than you'd think. To understand how you got here, to the wall of St. George's Hall, to the beautiful absurdity of it, you have to understand what a footman actually is, because the word has gone soft in the centuries and it started hard. Footman, the man who went on foot. 200 years ago and more, footmen ran, literally ran, beside and before their master's coach, hours at a stretch, to steady it in fords and clear the way and carry word ahead. Great men raced their footmen against each other for wages, like horses. That's the breed you come from. The running has gone, the legs remain. You were hired, measured like timber, at 5'11½", because state footmen are matched in pairs and paraded like plate, and a tall man in state livery is, in the plain economics of this world, an ornament, and ornaments are paid by the inch. Your wages, your keep, your livery found, and the powder money on top for the ruin of your hair. It is more than your father ever earned, with a bed thrown in and, as you now know, the best suppers in England. And in return the household takes your whole day and most of your name. The day starts at 6, in an attic room you share with Joe, under a window that sweats in winter. Cold water in the basin, gone grey-white when you've rinsed the night's powder out. Then down the back stairs into the working castle. And when I say the working castle, I need you to understand what that means. This is not a house with some servants in it. Windsor Castle covers 13 acres. It is a walled town with a crown on it, its own dairy, its own cellars, its own upholsterers, clock winders, lamp men, its own fire brigade, hundreds of people below stairs to serve the small black silk lady, and whichever 40 guests the chalkboard summons that night. Before breakfast you have carried coals, run messages the length of corridors that have their own weather, and stood for inspection once already. Your kingdom within the kingdom is the serving side, the pantries, the plate room, the serving room behind St. George's Hall, and the run. Learn the run, and you've learned the whole answer to the question this story's asking, the answer under the etiquette, the second reason the guests go hungry even before the Queen picks up her fork. The kitchen, never mind what happens inside it, that's another country with its own stories, lies a genuine journey from the dining rooms. The food comes out of the heat and starts travelling. Along the service corridor, through the swing doors, up the stairs, dish after dish in procession, and every yard of those stone corridors is a thief. Windsor stone drinks heat the way sand drinks water. The castle fights back with cunning. Hot closets, spirit lamps, covers that go on scalding, and plates heated until you handle them through cloths. But you cannot boil a corridor, and by the time a cutlet has made the run, and waited its turn in the serving room and gone down 200 feet of hall to the farthest cover, it is at best warm. Warm plates, cold food. Guests of the era said it to each other in private for decades, and the household said it before they did. So even the 4 bites the Baroness wins from the etiquette are 4 lukewarm bites. Hungry and lukewarm at that. That is dining with the Queen, and it took a rule and a floor plan working together to achieve it, and neither one of them was ever going to change, because one was as old as the crown, and the other was made of stone. Mr. Pratt would want it said. He has stopped you in the cellar passage to say it, one finger raised more than once, that the wine at least arrives in perfect condition. Pratt of the cellars, 60 if he's a day, dry as a communion wafer, guardian of vaults that run under the castle like a buried cathedral, and of ledgers he keeps in a hand so small it looks like distant birds. The Queen's cellars hold wine laid down before Trafalgar. Pratt speaks of certain bins the way other men speak of their children, and he despises dinner, not the wine service, the dinner. "Half an hour," he said to you once, decanting by candle flame, turning the bottle with a wrist so slow it seemed geological, hating every implication of hurry in the world. "A claret wants 40 minutes of air, boy." Dinner itself does not get 40 minutes. He sniffed the cork. "I serve my congregation faster than the parson serves his, and mine paid better for their pews." And the glasses come back to him, night after night, half full, wines older than the guests drinking them, poured, sipped twice, abandoned when the fan comes up. Pratt receives the returning decanters the way a father receives a daughter home early from a bad dance. He has never once let you pour at table. He does not trust your wrists. He tells you so, without cruelty, the way he'd say a barrel was green. Wrists, he says, are 10 years. Everything here is 10 years. That's the other thing you learned before your first season turned. The man who carves the sideboard beef. Decades at the board. Aldous. 3 of them under this roof, risen from hallboy, and he can stand so still at the head of the room that guests genuinely forget a man is there, then cross 40 feet of floor without making a sound in buckled shoes, which is a skill, he says, exactly as hard as playing the fiddle and half as appreciated. And old Mr. Coles. Coles you must meet properly, because Coles is where the stories live. Coles is a page now, one of the quiet elderly men in dark coats who attend doors and corridors, but he came into service under this roof as a boy in the rain's morning, and he is the household's memory. He remembers the Prince Consort alive. He remembers December 1861, when Prince Albert died along the corridor in the Blue Room, and the clocks of a whole castle seemed to change their tempo at once, and the great dinners stopped, and the Queen went into a black from which, at table at least, she never wholly returned. It's Coles who tells you, over cocoa at the long table on slow nights, what the dinners were like before. The Queen young, the Prince beside her, music, 30 years gone like a course cleared while you were looking away. She was quick at table even then, Coles says. The Prince used to tease her for it. Gently, mind. He turns his mug a quarter turn the way he does. Everything else changed. Not that. It's Coles who first tells you, that same winter night, the story of the snatched plate. The one everybody in service knows, the one that has escaped into the memoirs of the great and gone travelling round the dinner tables of England without us. And because this channel keeps its promises, here is the story exactly as it should be told, as a tale from the courtier's own remembering, written down by men who dined in that world, polished by every teller, including, no doubt, Coles, including, no doubt, me, a great lord. The memoir tradition generally makes him Lord Hartington, a man famous for being too grand to be frightened of anybody, is dining with the Queen. He is deep in talk with his neighbour, his mutton scarcely touched, when Her Majesty finishes, and the plates rise, his among them, mutton and all, borne away by a footman doing exactly what you do every night of your life. And Hartington, mid-sentence, does the one thing no guest in 60 years has done. He calls after it. Here, bring that back. Coles delivers the line with the mug halfway to his mouth, and the young ones down the table wait, and you wait. And did they? That, says Coles, depends on who's telling it. In the best telling, the Queen laughed. She liked courage at table. Heaven knows she saw little enough of it there. He sets the mug down. But I'll tell you what's true in every telling, boy. It took the second richest man in England to ask for his own dinner back. Nobody else ever dared. Think on that when you lift a plate. You do think on it. You will think on it one enormous June night, at the exact moment your gloved hand closes on the General's plate. But that is next year, and the castle between you and that night holds a whole turning of seasons first. Aldous finds you in the plate room the morning after Coles's story, up to your elbows in rouge and chamois, and stands watching you polish long enough that you begin to sweat. Cole's been giving you Hartington, he says. It isn't a question. Nothing he says is. Good. Now forget the laughing. Here is what that story is for. He takes the salver out of your hands, breathes on it, holds it to the light, hands it back. Do it again. Any fool can serve a dinner. We're not serving a dinner. We're keeping an order of things. The Queen is served first. Nobody eats after the Queen. The plate goes when the plate goes, and if a lord calls after his mutton, that is the lord's affair and none of yours. Your hand does not stop. He's quiet a moment, and then he gives you the sentence entire, the one you will hear him give every new man after you, his one heirloom. Steady hands. Empty face. The table can wobble. We can't. Steady hands. Empty face. You will say it to yourself this year the way other men say prayers. The summer of 1896 burns on. Ascot Week fills the castle with racing men and their wives, and the dinners run nightly, and you begin to be able to read the table the way Joe reads it, which is to say like a farmer reading Sky. You learn the migration patterns of hunger. You learn that the clever guests eat the soup like men bailing a boat, because soup is the one course where the Queen's speed works for you. She takes it steadily, and steadily is slower than fast. You learn that the fish is a trap, all bones and delay. You learn to spot in the drawing-room half-hour before dinner while you hand the sherry, the faces of the ones who have dined here before, a certain settled calm, the calm of the man with cold chicken waiting upstairs, and the other faces, the hopeful ones, the first-timers, saving themselves for the feast. Poor devils, the way you'd save yourself for a wedding breakfast. You learn the sound the hall makes at the exact moment 40 people realise the roast is already leaving. It is not a sound anyone makes on purpose. It is 40 small intakes of breath, discovering the same fact at once, a sort of soft tidal sigh, and then the immediate covering murmur of conversation, because to be heard regretting food would be barbarism, and you learn the silences. The Queen's dinners in these years are quiet in a way that presses on your ears. She's 77 this summer, and everything around her has been slowing and hushing for a decade. But not the eating, never the eating. Conversation at the head of the table happens when she starts it and stops when she stops it. Guests 2 seats away speak in the undertone of people in a sick room, and long stretches of a state dinner pass with no sound in 200 feet of gold, but the click of cutlery, the shift of a footman's buckle, and the castle wind in the chimneys. And you stand at the wall through those silences with your empty stomach shouting into the void, and your face like a plaster saint's. In August, the court moves, and you move with it, because when the Queen travels, dinner travels. Plate, cellar, chalk, clock discipline and footman, the whole apparatus boxed and shipped like a theatre company. Osborne House, Isle of Wight. You cross the Solent on a morning steamer with the salt wind cutting through your travelling coat, gulls hanging over the paddle boxes, Joe Green at the rail, 2 years your senior in everything but sea legs, and the plate chests under guard below like treasure, which is what they are. Osborne is another world pretending to be a house, an Italian villa the Queen and the Prince built for themselves in the 1840s, terraces going down toward the water, and at the end of it, this is the part no drawing prepared you for, the Durbar room. Finished only 5 years ago in 1891. A stateroom like the inside of an ivory casket, every inch of ceiling and wall worked in deep white Indian plasterwork, peacock over the chimney-piece, the whole thing made to say, in a Hampshire seaside house, India, because the little lady in black is an empress, and since the Golden Jubilee year of 1887 her Indian servants have stood behind her chair, and here at Osborne the greatest dinners are held in a room built as a bow toward a continent she rules and will never see. You serve your first dinner in the Durbar room on a hot night with the windows toward the sea, and here is what nobody tells you about a room like that. Plasterwork eats sound. All that carved depth swallows echo, and the hush of the Queen's table, which at Windsor at least had stone to ring against, goes down at Osborne into a silence like snowfall. You can hear the candles. You can hear faintly through the seaward windows the sigh of the tide on the private beach, and it keeps better time than the guests do. And the rule sails with you. Same fan, same speed, same arithmetic. The kitchens at Osborne are nearer than Windsor's. Nothing in England is as far as Windsor's, but nearness buys the guests only warmth, never time. Half an hour, 9 courses. The sea air gives everyone an appetite, and the etiquette takes it away again. And the German gentlemen suffer worst of all, and it is a German gentleman, that August, who nearly ends your career. A naval attaché, this one, broad as a cellar door, here with the summer's diplomatic tide. The Queen's grandson is the Kaiser. The family web runs under every court in Europe, and the dinners at Osborne are stitched through with uniforms of empires with a long and terrible century ahead of them. The attaché eats the way his hosts are too polite to, thoroughly, joyfully, with the open method of a man raised at tables where finishing was a compliment. And he is slow, gloriously, doctrinally slow. And at the cutlets, the Queen finishes, and the hand at the head of the room goes flat, and you move on your man, and his fork is up, loaded, his head turned to charm the lady beside him, his plate still half a campaign from one, and your white glove is 6 inches from the china when something closes on your instinct like a trap. Aldous. Across the room, not moving, not frowning, doing the thing he does with stillness alone. Wait. 2 seconds. 3. The attaché's fork completes its journey. In the doorway, sideways to the table, the master of the household has materialized the way he does on nights with foreign uniforms in the room. Pelham Clinton, tall, grave, the chalkboard's owner, a man whose whole art is preventing incidents before they can be born. And some current passes between him and Aldous over your head. Some weighing of a bigger table than this one. The plate must go. The guest is a guest of an empire. The rule is the rule. The Kaiser is the Kaiser. Then the attaché himself, feeling the particular cooling of air that means every servant in a room has stopped, glances up, reads the stillness in one soldierly sweep, and lays down his fork with a tiny exhale through the moustache, the sound of a man striking his colours. Your hand finishes its journey. The plate comes away light as a lie. Afterwards, in the serving room, Aldous says only this, not even looking up from the salvers. The rule bends for no one, but can wait 3 seconds, knowing which 3, that's the trade. And Pelham Clinton, passing through with the night's plan under his arm, pauses by the door, says, "Neatly done," to a point in the air somewhere between you and Aldous, and is gone. It is the first time the master of the household has acknowledged your existence. You feel it like brandy. Joe, that night, in your shared attic with the sea sounding through the open window. 3 seconds for the German Navy. Hartington got nothing and he ran half the cabinet. Work that out and you've worked out the whole world, William. The Osborne weeks teach you the other thing too, the thing about her. You see the Queen more at Osborne than anywhere, wheeled along the terrace in her chair in the mornings, dictating under the trees, the Munshi, her Indian secretary, in attendance with his folders, while the household seethes about him in whispers you're far too junior to be allowed. The whispers are documented history now. The resentments, the memoranda. The household's war against the Munshi was real and long, but it was fought far above your livery, and all you ever see is a dignified man in beautiful clothes walking at the pace of an old lady's chair. And what you see of her, closer than most of England ever will, is this. A small, stout, unwell old woman who buried her husband 35 years ago and has been at her desk since before your grandfather could walk, for whom food is one of the last uncomplicated pleasures left in the world. She does not linger at table for the same reason she does not linger anywhere. Everything in her life is cue and ceremony and loss. Dinner is the one thing she can simply have. So she has it. You'll hear people say she's greedy, Coles tells you, one Osborne evening. The two of you carrying candle boxes down the terrace steps with the Solent going bronze below. People who never watched her sign papers till midnight. Let them talk. She was quick at table when the Prince teased her for it in 1846, and she'll be quick at table the last dinner of her life. He stops on the step to breathe. He is old, the boxes are heavy, and he will not let you take his. The guests get hungry, boy. She got Albert taken. Everybody at that table is going without something. She's just the only one who isn't pretending otherwise. That sentence does something to you that you don't have words for at 19. You put it away whole, like a coin too large to change. September, and the court moves again, the long hall north, Special train, plate in the vans, the household decanted across a kingdom to Balmoral, the granite castle in the Highlands the Queen loves with the fierceness people reserve for the places where they were last happy. And Balmoral, of all places on the royal earth, is where you learn what her table looks like when the rules loosen. Because they do loosen here. Documented, sworn to by every memoir of the reign, marvelled at by every foreign guest hauled 500 miles to experience it. At Balmoral the Queen becomes, by her own lights, simple. The dinners shrink, the company shrinks, and out on the hill everything you know about royal dining turns inside out. The shooting luncheons. The gentlemen go out after stag and grouse, and luncheon goes out after the gentlemen in baskets on ponies, you and Joe in plain tweed for once instead of scarlet, hauling hampers up slopes that make your Norfolk lungs declare themselves heather to the horizon, cold coming off the tops like the breath of an open larder. And there, on a hillside, on rugs, with the mist walking the ridges, you watch noblemen eat, actually eat. Cold pies with both hands, mutton and whiskey, jokes at full volume, an earl wiping gravy from his chin with his wrist. Men who at Windsor sat starving in silence over gold plate, up here devouring their food like haymakers, and the reason is as simple as the reason for everything this year. She is not on the hill. The pace-setter is at her desk in the castle. Where the Queen is not, England eats. Even at the castle table, Balmoral is another climate. Some nights it's barely a state dinner at all. A handful of covers, tartan and dark wood instead of 200 feet of gold. Her Highland servants moving with a familiarity that would be sacrilege in St. George's Hall. After dinner comes the thing no guest ever forgets, and half of them never forgive. Her piper, walking the table round, pipes at full cry in a dining room, a sound like glorious civil war in a space built for 40, and you stand at the wall watching diplomats vibrate. The Queen loves it. It is the loudest thing her table is ever allowed to be, and it happens only here, and it happens because Albert loved this place, and some part of dinner at Balmoral is still 35 years on, dinner with a ghost. But the fan still lies by her place, the plates still go when her fork goes down. You could stand it on a mountain, this table, and the rule would climb up after it. Bend, never break, Aldous says, watching you notice it. Now you know the whole of it. Windsor is the rule kept hard. Balmoral is the rule kept kind. Same rule. He almost smiles. The Highlands unlock him half a turn like everyone. You'll see it kept grand before you're done. Wait for the summer. You don't know yet what he means by the summer. All England will soon enough. Because that September, while you're still at Balmoral hauling hampers through the heather, a date quietly falls due that has been approaching for 60 years. On the 23rd of September, 1896, Queen Victoria passes her grandfather George III and becomes the longest reigning monarch in the whole 1,000-year story of the English crown. And she does the most characteristic thing imaginable. She asks that the celebrations wait. Hold them, she says, for next June, for the 60th anniversary of the accession itself, the Diamond Jubilee, a summer away, which means that from that day on, everything in your world, every pantry, every cellar, every chalk line in the master's office, is living on a fuse. You feel it first as paper. Lists begin to breed. Pratt starts walking his cellars in the evenings with a lantern and a notebook, muttering over bins like a general reviewing troops he suspects of being too few. The plate room takes inventory of the grand service twice in 1 month. 4,000 pieces counted twice by men who count for a living, and Aldous begins drilling the young footman in pairs on the long gallery, up and down, plates loaded with sand weights, until your forearms sing. "Next June," he says, walking the line of you like a colour sergeant, "this household will serve the kings of the earth at one table. Whoever drops anything between now and then, drop it this winter." The court comes south in November into a Windsor gone to iron, and winter, you discover, is the season when the second villain of this story, the distance, the stone, the run, does its worst work, and the guests' dinners reach their coldest, and the whole absurd machine grinds closest to farce. Understand what a Windsor corridor is in January. The castle is heated the way the Queen likes everything, the way it was. She keeps rooms cold on principle. Fresh air is a creed with her, windows open in weather that would ground gulls, and the service corridors were never heated at all. The run in midwinter is a stone gullet with frost on its breath. You can see your breath the whole quarter-mile. The hot closets fight, the spirit lamps fight, the covers go on scalding and the plates go out wrapped like invalids, and the corridor takes its toll anyway, yard by yard, dish by dish. There are January nights when the entree leaves the heat glorious and arrives at the far covers of St. George's Hall as a still life. The guests eat for their allotted 3 minutes, food dressed like summer in a room dressed like November, wine at perfect temperature thanks to Pratt, sauce stiffening on the plate, and the sideboard beef standing there cold as ever, only now honestly so, the one dish in the room whose temperature is intentional. And one hard night in the middle of December, the run nearly takes you. Pheasants that night, a dozen birds under domes, and you are second man on the stairs flight, moving at the pace that is not running because running is forbidden, and not walking because walking is impossible. And on the fourth stair from the top, your heel finds the little skin of grease that some earlier dish has laid down for you, thin as a lie, and the world goes sideways. The dish leaves your hands. You get it back. Some animal in your wrists gets it back. The dome shrieking against the rim like a struck bell, and your forearm comes down braced across the copper hot water jacket beneath, and holds, and the birds live, and the skin of your arm from wrist to elbow pays for it with a long, angry scald that you do not feel at all for 3 steps, and then feel enormously. You serve the rest of dinner with the arm. That's not heroism, it's arithmetic. The wall must hold its number, and dinner will be over in half an hour, and nothing at that table waits, wounds included. You stand your place with the burn pulsing inside your sleeve like a second heart, face empty, hands steady, while an admiral 40 inches away gets 4 bites of pheasant that nearly cost a man an arm, doesn't finish them, wasn't given time to, and leaves the table hungry. It's Annie who fixes you afterwards at the corner of the long table, with the household's own supper steaming down its length. Pheasant, naturally. The birds came back. They always come back. She unwraps your arm, hisses through her teeth at it, dresses it with flour and oil and a strip of clean linen, all without asking permission or lowering her voice about your intelligence. "For a dish of birds," she says, tying off the linen, "that nobody upstairs got to eat anyway." "They'd have gone hungry," you say. "They went hungry regardless." She looks at you then, the whole length of a second too long. You're the only fool in this castle who thinks the difference was worth your arm. Eat your supper. But she saves you the undercut again that night, and the night after, and there is a kind of conversation 2 people can have entirely in undercuts, and you and Annie are having it, all that winter, and every man at the long table knows it before you do. Christmas the court keeps at Osborne, as the Queen has kept it for half a century. The crossing in December weather, Joe Grey as the Solent itself, and the household sees the year out within sound of the sea. Then Windsor again, and it is 1897 itself, and the fuse is visibly shorter now, and the castle begins to hum. You feel the Jubilee coming the way you'd feel weather. In February the invitations begin to be spoken of, not sent yet, weighed, because this is the chalkboard's finest hour and its worst. The master's office in the spring of 1897 is a war room. The Jubilee, some minister has decided, shall be a festival of the empire itself. The premiers of the 11 self-governing colonies are to come with their troops, and half the crowned heads of Europe would like to come and cannot all be had, and every name is a treaty and every seat is a border, and the board is wiped and rechalked so many times that Pelham Clinton is said, by Joe, so tax it accordingly, to have worn through to the wood in the place where a certain Grand Duke keeps almost being seated and then not. In March, on a raw blue afternoon, Coles takes you up the round tower. He has a key. Coles has keys the way other men have opinions. Up the cold turning stair, your burned arm, healed now to a shiny pink stripe you will carry to your grave wherever that is, braced against the core of the spiral, and out at last onto the leads, into wind, into light, into England. You can see 30 miles, the Thames lying through the valley like dropped ribbon, Eton Chapel across the river pinnacled and small, the long walk running dead straight south for miles, the double lines of elms drawn with a ruler, and away to the horizon in every direction, the smoke of towns, the steam of a train crawling toward Paddington, the whole webbed, worked, owned landscape of the realm, and under your feet 13 acres of castle, and under the castle this year one idea, June. I first stood up here the year the Queen married, Coles says. The wind takes half his voice. He doesn't fight it. 57 years, boy, and I've served dinner to most of what you can see from this roof, one night or another. Prime ministers, archbishops, an emperor or two. He's quiet a while. The flag cracks above you like a whip taking its time. And every one of them went down those stairs afterwards hungrier than the boy who carried their plates. You want the secret of this whole shining place? There it is. Nowhere on earth sets a better table, and nobody at it gets to eat. He turns his collar up. Never repeat that. You just repeated it. I'm old, says Coles. It's expected of me. You're a young man at the start of a jubilee. Nothing is expected of you except everything. Come down before we're missed. That could be you one day is what you think, following his careful old back down the dark of the spiral. 57 years of stairs, and all the kings of the earth fed and starved by the same steady hands, and a key to the roof of the kingdom in his coat pocket. There are worse lives. You're beginning to suspect there are few better, though you'd be laughed out of the servants' hall for saying it. April, and the drills begin in earnest. May, and the plate starts going up to London by rail under escort, chest by chest. The household is splitting itself like a cell. Windsor keeping its skeleton service, the great muscle of it moving to Buckingham Palace, and the lists on the pantry wall grow names you've only ever seen in newsprint. Joe reads them over your shoulder at night, whistling softly through his teeth. Naples, Prussia, Denmark, Siam, Persia. He taps the paper. All at one table, William, and her at the head of it, and one fan, and one rule. He grins at you in the candlelight, and then says the thing everyone in the household has been thinking and nobody has said aloud. Half an hour. She'll do the greatest dinner since Waterloo in half an hour, and the kings of the earth will go to bed hungry as everybody else, and 100 years from now nobody will believe us. Believe him, every word. You were there, or rather someone was, someone whose gloves you're wearing tonight, and the clocks and the menus and the newspapers stand behind what comes next, whatever became of the hands. In the first week of June, you go up to London with the last of the dining room party, rattling out of Windsor Station past bunting already going up on houses that can't afford paint. The whole country breaking out in red, white and blue like a rash of loyalty, and you have one thought as the castle drops behind the trees, one thought with the pantry clock ticking inside it. 3 weeks to the 22nd of June. Buckingham Palace in Jubilee month is Windsor at a rolling boil. The state rooms stand under dust sheets being undressed one by one like statues before a festival. The palace serving quarters fill with borrowed men from every royal household in the working list. Footmen you've never seen drilling in lines beside you. And in the middle of the new serving room, on its own nail, driven in by his own hand the first morning, the pantry clock. Aldous had it crated at Windsor and carried up with the plate. Joe stares at it, delighted beyond speech. An 8-day wall clock with a face like weak tea, hanging in Buckingham Palace between 200 years of better clocks. He brought the clock. The only honest thing at dinner, you say. And Aldous, passing behind you both with a list, says, "Correct," and keeps walking. And that is the nearest thing to a joke anyone will get out of him this month. The kings arrive through the 3rd week of June like weather systems. You see them from pantry windows and across galleries. The Prince of Naples, Princes of Prussia and Denmark and a dozen thrones between. The colonial premiers, 11 of them, ministers of countries a month's sail away, wearing their new uniforms with the careful pride of men whose grandfathers cleared farms. Every royal train that steams in means another line on the board, and the board by now is a battlefield. You are sent to the master's office twice that week with pantry lists, and both times Pelham Clinton is standing before the chalk in his shirt sleeves, the master of the household in shirt sleeves, moving crowned heads through arcs of a table with the flat of his hand, and the second time he is saying to an equerry, in the voice of a man discussing artillery ranges, "No, precedence says he sits there, and precedence is the one law even Her Majesty's dinner cannot digest." On the 20th of June, the true anniversary, 60 years to the day since a girl of 18 was woken at Kensington to be told she was queen, there is quiet, church and family, and the palace holding its breath. On the 21st, the first great state banquet, the kings of the earth at her table for the first time, and it goes like a field day, half an hour and out, and the borrowed footmen from lesser households come off the wall, looking like men who have seen a ghost move fast. But the 21st is only the rehearsal history granted you. The 22nd of June, 1897, is the longest day of your life, and it begins at 4 in the morning with London already roaring. You hear it through the pantry windows before dawn. Not a crowd, a sea. They have been camping on the pavements all night along 6 miles of processional route, millions of them, the biggest crowd the capital of the biggest empire on earth has ever held. The morning is grey, then, on cue. They will call it Queen's weather in tomorrow's papers. The sun tears through as the guns begin. Before she leaves the palace, the Queen touches an electric key, and a telegraph message runs out along the wires to every corner of the empire, to Ottawa and Cape Town and Calcutta and Sydney. A sentence composed like everything of hers, plainly. From my heart, I thank my beloved people. May God bless them. You watch the procession leave from a high window over the forecourt, packed shoulder to shoulder with pantry men and housemaids, all ranks suspended for 1 hour by unspoken treaty. Cavalry of every colour of the empire, Canadian hussars, Indian lancers, Australian rifles, the escort of princes riding 3 by 3, and then the 8 cream horses and the open carriage and the small figure in black holding a parasol. And the sound the city makes as she passes the gates is not cheering. It's too big to be cheering. It's the sound a continent of throats makes when it tries to say one thing at once. Beside you, without a word, old Coles takes off his hat. He holds it to his chest the whole time the carriage is in view, and his eyes shine, and you look away because some things even a borrowed pair of eyes shouldn't stare at. At St. Paul's, they hold the service on the steps. Outside, in the open air, the whole Thanksgiving of the Empire conducted around a carriage, because the Queen's knees can no longer manage the cathedral stairs, and nobody in 60 years of protocol could find a way to say so except by moving the service to her. Remember that tonight, when the fan comes up early. Her body is spending this year on ceremony alone what most sovereigns spend on wars. By 6 in the evening, the palace is a launched ship. There is no walking pace anywhere below stairs. The banquet tonight is the summit of the summit. The Queen, the visiting royalties, the great officers, the ambassadors, the fullest, most jewelled table this reign has ever set, in the great supper room under chandeliers like burning ships, the grand service blazing down the boards, and the plan of it all chalked and rechalked until this afternoon, when it was finally, mercifully copied out fair. At 20 minutes past 7, it stops being fair. A page comes down the corridor at a dead run, a page running, with a slip of paper for Pelham Clinton, and you are close enough to see the master of the household read it, and close his eyes for exactly 1 second, which from him is a scream, a royal alteration. One illustrious person the plan expected is unwell tonight as will not dine, another dines after all, and precedence, the iron arithmetic, does not permit a hole. Every cover between the head of the table and the change must shift. 16 places, relaid, recarded, reflowered, 40 minutes before the doors. Dining room party, Aldous' voice once like a rope thrown. And you go in over the side of that table, all of you. The drilled year of you, glass by glass, blade by blade, the fair copy plan held open by a man walking backwards down the boards, calling names in a low chant, cards lifted with gloves, gold shifted in armfuls that would ransom streets, and you take the far side of the shift with Joe, place after place, hands moving on their own the way Aldous built them to, steady, steady, and at 7 minutes to 8 the last card goes down. A Grand Duchess where a Grand Duke should have been, correct to the fair copy, correct to the chalk, and Pelham Clinton walks the whole length once, hands behind his back, reading the table like proof pages. He stops at your end. He looks for 2 full seconds at 16 relayed covers. Gentlemen, he says to all of you and none of you, the household is served, which is the oldest and highest thing he ever says, and he says it perhaps once a year. You take your station at the great carved sideboard with your back to a fortune in gold, the edge of it against your spine, your heart going like the crowd this morning. From here, the sideboard's edge, the finest witness post in the empire, you can see the whole shining length. 60 and more covers, orchids and smilax down the middle, the plateaus throwing candlelight up into faces, and the menu cards in French promising a dozen courses out of the finest kitchen in the world. doors. The procession, 2 by 2, precedents made flesh. Kings' sons giving their arms to queens' daughters, jewels moving like slow fireworks, the colonial premiers walking among princes, and last, at her own pace small, in black silk sewn with silver that catches the light like frost, the Queen. The whole golden room bends as she passes. She takes her seat. The fan, you find it instantly, trained a year for this half-second. The fan lies down on the cloth by her place, black, folded still. Aldous' hand flat, and the greatest dinner of the age begins, and the pantry clock in the serving room stands at 20 minutes past 8. You noted it as the soup went by you, because you are Windsor maid, and Windsor maid means you cannot not note it. What follows is everything this story has taught you, played at full orchestra. The soup bailed like boats by the wise, the silences spreading down from the head of the table in rings, the Indian attendants behind her chair, scarlet and gold and perfectly still. Pratt in the doorway shadows, having decanted tonight, he told you at noon, with his own hands, wines laid down before some of these kings' thrones existed, and it was Pratt, at noon, who put into your hands the small tray, with the Queen's own glasses to carry to the table. Your wrists finally, wordlessly declared 10 years old, at only 20. You will never be prouder of anything you cannot tell your mother. The speed, above all the speed. She is 78. She has this day driven 6 miles through the roaring love of millions, and given thanks for 60 years on the steps of St. Paul's. And she takes her dinner like a healthy sergeant still, course upon course, and the kings of the earth keep her pace or lose the course, exactly like any baroness at Windsor on any wet Tuesday of the rain. And at the game course, at the top of your own stretch of table, history hands you your inheritance. A general, a great one, campaigns on his chest like a spilled jewel box. He shall stay nameless here, because his name belongs to him, and this moment belongs to the household, is deep in the best story of his life. You can tell it's the best one. The whole reach of the table is leaned toward him as far as etiquette will bend, and his fork has been standing planted in an untouched bird for 4 minutes like a flag on a summit. And the Queen finishes, and the hand at the head of the room goes flat, and your white glove closes on the rim of his plate. He does what they all do, the flicker, the half-turn, the mouth opening, and for one huge second, with the candles roaring silently, and a year of Coles's cocoa voice in your ears, here, bring that back. You look at the precise middle distance Aldous taught you, and you feel the plate resist. Not physically, morally. A general of the British Army wants his dinner, and the whole weight of 60 years of the rule is running down your arm into your glove, and the plate comes away, light as a lie, and his mouth closes, and he turns his half-turn into a reach for his wine, like a cavalryman turning a stumble into a dismount, and the story resumes at the exact syllable it left off, and no one at the table of kings has seen anything at all. Steady hands, empty face. The table can wobble. We can't. She rises early. You knew she would. St. Paul's is in her shoulders by the sweet course, plain to anyone who has watched her for a year. And so you are already watching the black fan when it stirs on the cloth, and you catch it a full breath before the room does. The fan, up into the small hand. You do not move a muscle. You send it down the wall the way you were taught, a flick of the eyes to Aldous, who has missed nothing in 30 years but accepts the flag from you tonight like a colonel letting a young soldier fire the salute. and the hand goes flat and the wall is ready, and when the Queen of England and Empress of India comes to her feet at the head of the greatest table of her reign, every chair moves as one chair, and not one king is caught chewing. She goes out, silver frost on black silk at her own pace, past the sideboard, past you, so close you can hear the silk itself, and the table of the earth stands hungry and glittering behind her, and that is the diamond jubilee from the sideboard's edge. In the serving room the pantry clock says 5 minutes to 9. Joe is beside you, both of you loaded with gold, and he doesn't even have to say it. 34 minutes, the grandest dinner since Waterloo, and he owes you sixpence, because this time, this one time, with kings at the table and the fair copy still warm, you took the long side of the wager. Some dinners even she would grant an extra 5 minutes, you'd said. Empires take longer to chew. That's the last time I bet on her speed, Joe breathes, fishing for the coin with 2 fingers, arms full of plates. Or against you. I'm ruined either way. Behind you both, quietly, old Coles sets down a candle box, looks once through the doors at the wrecked and blazing table, a whole reign laid out in gold and uneaten food, and says, to nobody, in the voice of a man closing a book, "There, nobody will ever see that again." He's right. Nobody ever will. The clearing of that table takes until past midnight, and it is the gentlest work you have done all year. The fury is out of the night. What's left is the long, quiet undoing, gold counted home into felt-lined chests. Candles pinch down the boards one by one so that the great supper room sinks back into shadow a yard at a time. The orchids carried away by armfuls, and the food, the towering uneaten food of the Jubilee, going down to the household the way it has gone down every night of 60 years. Tonight the servants of Buckingham Palace and the borrowed men of half the royal households of England sup at 1 in the morning on the dinner of kings, literally. There is no metaphor left in this castle of a sentence. That is simply what is on the table, and at midnight, as you stack the last salvers in the serving room, under the tea-brown gaze of the pantry clock, there comes a knock at the pantry stairs door. Soft, double, apologetic. You know that knock. You'd know it asleep. On the stair, wrapped in a grey shawl over her nightclothes, stands a lady's maid. A Scottish voice, a face carved into perfect discretion. In service she allows, to a duchess whose name you will keep to yourself all your life, and so will I. Somewhere above you both, in a palace stuffed to the leads with the conquerors of the earth, her Grace is sitting up in bed, having this day watched the greatest procession in imperial history, and this evening attended the grandest banquet of the age, and her Grace is hungry. Her Grace wonders, the maid begins. You are already turning, because it travelled, of course. It came up from Windsor in the plate chests, packed by Joe with a straight face between the spare wicks and the glass cloths, because Joe learned the trade from the same man you did, the japanned tin. It has crossed the Solent twice this year, been north to the Highlands and back, and tonight it has fed its biscuits to the Jubilee. You wrap 6 of them in a clean napkin. Osborne biscuits, sweet and pale, veterans of the 3rd shelf. And you add, because it is 1 in the morning at the top of the world and some laws are above etiquette, a wing of cold chicken. The maid looks at the chicken. The maid looks at you. You'll go far, she says, and vanishes up the dark with the parcel, and that, a duchess fed secretly from a tin at midnight, while the gold of the grand service is counted to sleep next door. That is the true last course of the Diamond Jubilee, and no menu card in French will ever record it. The days after are strange and slow, the way the days after any great tide are strange. The water going out, the ordinary shore coming back. There is a garden party on the 28th, thousands on the palace lawns and the Queen driving among them in her carriage. There are farewells of kings, trains steaming out day by day, carrying the future of Europe home to its separate fates. And then one July morning the plate chests go back down to Windsor under escort, and you go with them, and the pantry clock rides crated in the van beside you like a veteran coming home from a campaign. Windsor in high summer, after London, is silence you can lean on. The rooks in the Long Walk elms, the flag idol on the round tower, Annie at the corner of the long table your first supper back, pushing the undercut onto your plate before you've sat down, examining the fading pink stripe on your forearm with a proprietary air, listening to exactly 4 minutes of jubilee before she stops you with one raised hand. "Did you eat all that month?" she says. "Properly?" "Annie, there were 11 premieres in the whole German. So no." She refills your beer. "Kings come and go, William Carr. Supper is nightly. Sit there till you've finished." And you realise, sitting there till you've finished, warm to the bones of you, that of everything you saw in June. The crowns, the gold, the 6 miles of roaring love. The thing you'd keep, if they made you choose tonight, is this. The long scrubbed table and the undercut, and being told to sit there till you finished by someone who noticed whether you ate. The guests upstairs never once had that. Not in 60 years. That's the whole story, really. You've been living inside the answer all along. August brings Osborne again, and the sea, and the Durbar room dinners with the plasterwork drinking the silence. September brings Balmoral, the hampers, the heather, the piper making diplomats vibrate. And the year, having shown you its greatest possible day, begins to fold itself up with the modesty of all years. But 2 things change that autumn, and both of them change in the serving room, quietly, the way everything real in this household changes. The first is Joe. He tells you at Balmoral, on the hill, the 2 of you resting the hampers on a stone with the mist walking the ridges like sentries. He's been offered a place in the Prince of Wales's household, Marlborough House, London, the other court, the next reign standing in the wings, and he's taking it, and he wants you to hear why from him and not from the hall. It's not the wages. He looks out down the glen. You've stood her dinners a year now. You know what they are. Half an hour and holy and nobody eats. Well, at Marlborough House, they eat. He says it almost guiltily, like a man describing a foreign religion he's been caught admiring. The prince dines the way she reigns, seriously. 10 courses, and every one of them gets its funeral rites, cigars after, supper later. That's the table that's coming, William, when... He doesn't finish it. Nobody in service finishes that sentence in 1897. That's the table that's coming. I mean to know my way around it before it arrives. You carry the hampers down off the hill in a silence that isn't a quarrel, and at Christmas he goes, with the whole hall singing him out, and his last act in your attic room is to leave, on your washstand, 1 sixpence. The 6pence or so he claims, polished like plate. The second thing is Aldous. He keeps you back one October evening at Windsor, after the salvers are away, and he stands under the pantry clock winding his watch, which is what he does instead of clearing his throat. "I've put your name forward," he says. "Second footman of the dining room when the list is made up at the new year. There are men senior to you. I've put you forward over them, and I'll tell you the reason once, and then neither of us will mention it again." He pockets the watch. Above his head the honest clock ticks on toward another dinner. On the 22nd of June, at the game course. A man 3 times your age and 40 times your rank wanted his plate, and your hand didn't stop. And at the fan, you were a breath in front of me. A breath in front of me, boy. I've had 30 years, and there are perhaps 3 breaths left in me, and this household does not run on plate or Frenchman's menus. It runs on the next pair of steady hands. He turns down the lamp until the room is mostly clock. That's all. Good night to you. It is the longest speech you will ever hear him make, and the nearest thing to an embrace the serving corridor of Windsor Castle has witnessed in living memory. So the seasons close over the Jubilee the way the sea closes over a great ship's wake, and you rise in the new year of 1898 to the second footman's place, and the dinners go on. That's what they do. It's what they're for. The chalkboard fills and wipes and fills. Pratt lets you pour now, some nights, watching your wrists like a magistrate but letting you pour. Coles grows slower on the stairs and will not surrender his candle boxes. Annie saves the undercut. The Queen is served first. Nobody eats after the Queen. Half an hour, 9 courses. Warm plates, cold food. The rule holds, and the guests of the greatest table on earth keep arriving in hope and departing in hunger. Generals and duchesses and premiers, year upon year, exactly as they did before you came, exactly as they will after. Here is the one thing I'll say only once, because this house taught me to be careful with the future. All through these bright, quiet seasons, the hampers on the hill, the tin at midnight, the sixpence on the washstand, you do not yet know how little of it remains. The small figure at the head of the table has fewer than 4 years left of dinners, and the world that goes when she goes, the half-hour banquets, the hush, the fan on the cloth, the whole beautiful starving order of it, will go so completely that within a generation men will tell your stories at their clubs as things too strange to be true. You don't know that. Neither do the kings. Only the clocks are counting honestly, the way clocks do, and they're not telling. What the record tells, it tells plainly, and you may as well hear it now, here, in the warm dark, while the house above you sleeps. The Queen died at Osborne on the 22nd of January 1901, in the house of the Durbar Room and the summer terraces, her family about her, having taken dinners to the last. Quick ones, no doubt. She was herself to the end. The Munshi, her Indian secretary, walked among the mourners. Afterwards the new king had his papers burned and sent him home to India, where he died in 1909, and history has spent a century arguing about all of it. The new king was the Prince of Marlborough House, and Joe's foreign religion became the law of the land. Under Edward VII the royal dinner stretched out, course upon unhurried course, wine given its 40 minutes, guests actually, luxuriously fed, and courtiers who had starved for decades under the old reign wrote it all down at last. The half-hour dinners, the vanished plates, the mutton called back, in the memoirs where we found them, which is how you and I came to be standing at this wall tonight. The menus themselves sleep in the royal archives in this very castle, French and cream-coloured and patient. The gold is still counted, the rooms are all still there, and the footman, the young man whose gloves you've worn this year, whose scalded arm you've carried, whose sixpence you've pocketed, he was many men, and this house never wrote their names where we could find them, and I promised you at the doors that I'd tell you which was which. So, whoever they were, the tall boys from Norfolk and everywhere else, hired by the inch, powdered like pastry, steady of hand and empty of face, who stood at the richest walls in the world on the emptiest stomachs in the room. History closed over them the way the doors of St. George's Hall close after dinner. Completely, and without a sound. No memoir, no portrait. Only the work, done perfectly, nightly, for 60 years. And the fact, recorded by every hungry guest who ever wrote the dinners down, that the plates moved as if by themselves. That was them. That was you. Moving as if by yourself. So come back down, one last time, to where the story actually lives. Not the Jubilee, not the King's. An ordinary evening, say a soft blue one in the spring of 1898, with rain that came and went all afternoon and left the terraces smelling of wet stone and box hedge. Because the truth of a place is never its greatest night. The truth of a place is its Tuesday. A small dinner tonight, 14 covers, a bishop, some soldiers, a pair of ministers, ladies of the household. No chalk crisis. The board was settled by 4 and Pelham Clinton was gone from his office by 6, which happens perhaps 10 times a year and makes the whole corridor walk lighter. You dress at 7 without thinking about any single motion of it, which is what a year and a half does. The powder, the scarlet, the buckles, the gloves drawn on and smoothed finger by finger. All of it happening to you now the way evening happens to a garden. Inspection, the candle, your wrist turned under the flame, passed without a word. It has been months since Aldous found anything on any glove of yours, and both of you know it, and the inspection happens anyway, nightly, because the inspection is not about the glove. It is about the two of you agreeing in silence, at the top of every evening, that things are to be done properly. That's all a household is, you've decided. People agreeing nightly that things are to be done properly. Dinner goes like water over known stones. The procession short tonight, silk and low voices. The soup, a white soup and a clear one. The tureens breathing their beef and sherry breath at you down the run as always. Your stomach saluting them as always. Some things no year of service will civilize. The bishop, a first-timer, loses his fish to the rule and takes it well. The soldiers, old hands, bail their soup like sailors and fold their hands. The Queen, 78 now, small and indestructible at the head of the shine, eats her steady, hurried way through 9 courses in 31 minutes, by the clock you can no longer help consulting, and speaks twice, quietly, and is answered quietly, and the wind moves in the chimneys, and the candles lean and right themselves, and the fan comes up, and the chairs go back, and it is over, and it was in its way. You can admit this now from the inside. Beautiful. It was never anything so simple as cruel, you think. Walking the cleared hall afterwards with the snuffer in your hand, killing the table's light candle by candle. It was a machine for turning food into order. The most beautiful room in England, the finest kitchen in Europe. 4,000 pieces of gold, all arranged so that 14 or 40 or 60 of the most consequential people alive could sit for half an hour in the presence of the century itself, and be reminded, by their own stomachs, the one witness that never flatters, that they were small and she was the crown, and dinner, like the tide, was not theirs to hold. Nobody ever said it that way. Nobody had to. Every course said it. Going back down the run. The last candle but one is Coles's, at the far door. He waits for you these nights, so you can walk the dark together, and the two of you go down the long dim corridors at his pace, past the pier glasses with their drowned reflections, past the sleeping pictures, kings and horses and dead admirals sinking into the brown dark, the frames giving back the last of your candle like embers. and his voice in the dark is the best thing in the castle, low and unhurried, a coal settling in a grate. 60 years of dinners, he says tonight, apropos of nothing, which is how he says everything now. And you know what I remember, boy, when I can't sleep? Not the Jubilee, not the Emperor's. The candle ducks in a door draught. You shield it. The two of you walk on inside your little moving room of light. The quiet nights. 14 covers and rain on the glass. The house doing the thing it was built for. Well, with nobody watching. That's what I'll take with me. A few steps. The tick of the pantry clock reaching you faintly through 2 closed doors, the way the sea reaches into a shell. Places are like people. You don't love them for their great days. You love them for their evenings. At the foot of the back stairs he stops, as he always stops, and puts his old dry hand on your shoulder, as he always does, and delivers you to the night. Go up, Mr. Carr. Mr. these days. From Coles, a knighthood. You stood it well tonight. You stand it well every night. Try not to let the house make you old before it's made you wise. It does one or the other to everybody, and it's a race. The hand pats twice. Done. Good night to you, boy. And then supper. The long table half empty this late. The lamps turned low and gentle. The returned dinner dealt down the board. The bishop's fish. The soldier's birds. The beef off the sideboard that no one upstairs touched tonight or any night. Annie sits across from you while you eat, mending the hem of an apron, not talking much because you're past the needing to talk of it now. The undercut arrives on your plate without comment, the beer after it, and around you the hall empties by ones and twos, chairs scraped softly, good nights murmured, the great castle shutting itself down room by room above your heads like a body falling asleep limb by limb. You sit a while after the plate is clean. You've earned the sitting. This is the hour you've come to love best in all the 24. The house at Slackwater, dinner dead, breakfast unborn, nothing anywhere to be carried or timed or feared. The fire in the hall, great gone to that deep orange that doesn't flicker anymore, just breathes. Annie bites her thread, folds the apron, looks at you across the scrub deal that has fed you both 1,000 times. Bed, footman, she says. The Queen dines again tomorrow. The Queen dines again tomorrow. There it is, the whole calendar of your life in 5 words, and it lands on you not as a weight but as a kind of promise. Tomorrow the lists, the powder, the candle at your wrist. Tomorrow the run, the tureens, the fan on the cloth. Tomorrow 14 or 40 of the great and good will come up the hill in their carriages, hungry and hopeful, and go down it again, hungry and honoured, and the tin will wait on its shelf for the soft double knock, and the clock will tell the truth about all of it, the way it has since before you were born. You bank the last of the fire, you take your candle, you go up. The back stairs at midnight are a country you know blindfold now. 41 steps in the first flight. You counted them your first homesick week, and the number has stayed with you the way numbers do when you learn them lonely. The stone is dished in the middle of each tread, worn into shallow spoons by 200 years of climbing servants, and your feet find the spoons without being asked. The candle throws your shadow up the turn ahead of you, enormous, soft-edged, a giant in livery going quietly to bed. The attic room is yours, alone these days. Joe's bed stands stripped under the slope of the roof, waiting for whatever green boy the new year sends you, some 17-year-old from Devon or Cumberland or Norfolk, who will lie there his first night listening to the castle creak and thinking he has made the mistake of his life. You'll tell him what Joe told you. It gets easier. You'll teach him the run, and the spoons in the stairs, and the wall, and the fan. You'll turn your wrist under the candle for him some day, if the race coals spoke of runs kind. That's how a house like this stays alive. It hands itself forward, wrist by wrist. You set the candle on the washstand next to the sixpence that lives there now like a small silver saint. You unbutton the scarlet slowly, hang it true on its peg, ease the buckled shoes off feet that have carried you. You did the sum once, idly, on the back of a pantry list. Something like 8 miles on a full dinner night, corridor and stair and hall, 8 miles inside one building without once seeming to hurry. You pour the cold water and wash the powder from your hair, white clouding into the basin like the ghost of the evening leaving you, and the scalp tightness lets go, and you rub the towel over your head and stand a moment in the plain, honest shirt of a plain, honest man, nobody's ornament until tomorrow. The bed takes you the way water takes a swimmer at the end of a long day, all at once, completely. And you lie there in the dark under the sloped ceiling, warm coming up slowly in the blankets, listening to the castle settle. It talks to itself at night, this building. You know its voices now. The tick of the rain beginning again, soft on the leads a few feet above your face. The wind trying the chimney, giving it up, moving on. Somewhere below, a door far off, closed by a careful hand. The bell of the curfew tower telling midnight to the empty ward, and the town clocks of Windsor answering it a few seconds behind and further out, fainter. Eton's bells across the river, the whole valley agreeing about the hour at its own unhurried pace. Under all of it, if you listen, and you always listen, last thing, the way another man might say his prayers, the castle's oldest sound, which is no sound at all, 13 acres of stone holding still. It has held still through 800 years, this hill of walls. It was holding still before there were dinners. It will hold still long after. Your body gives you its quiet report, the way a body does when you finally lie flat. The feet throbbing faintly, gratefully. The calves heavy. The forearm with its pale-heeled stripe, aching tonight the small weather ache it will always answer rain with, your own private barometer, souvenir of a dish of pheasants, the shoulders letting the floor of the bed have their weight at last. The hands, you flex them once in the dark, the good steady hands Aldous bet a household on, uncurling, going soft, off-duty. Even your stomach is quiet, fed and settled and warm, and there is a plain animal happiness in that which no guest above stairs knew tonight. And you fall asleep most nights inside that one modest triumph, and tonight is no different. The year drifts past you in pieces, the way the day's water drifts past a moored boat. The gloves under the candle, the soup going down the wall, turtle and white, the fan black on white damask stirring, the Solent bright off the paddle boxes, and Joe Green at the rail. Heather, and cold pies eaten with both hands on a hillside, and an earl's laughter rolling down a glen. The plasterwork silence of the Durbar room drinking the candlelight, the chalk names shifting on the blackboard, dukes sliding one place left, the general's plate coming away under your glove, light as a lie, on the night the kings came, a napkin of biscuits going up a dark stair to a duchess. Rain on the glass, 14 covers, Coles's candle waiting at the far door, the undercut arriving without comment. Sit there till you finished. You did well this year. You can say it to yourself here in the dark where no one official can hear. You came from a village where the great world was a picture in a shop window, and you learned the hardest trade in that world, the trade of being perfectly present and perfectly invisible. And you stood the wall on the biggest night an empire ever threw, and your hand did not stop, and your face did not move, and afterwards a man of 30 years' silence said a breath in front of me, "Boy," and meant it. You're warm enough, fed enough, safe enough. You have a bed under old stone and work worth doing in the morning, and people, you count them drowsily like coins. Aldous, Coles, Annie, Pratt, even Joe away in his new gilded republic of long dinners. People to whom it matters whether you eat and sleep and come to no harm. That's more than the bishop had at that table tonight. It's more than the general had at the table of kings. By every measure that survives the century, you are the rich man in this castle. That's enough. It's more than enough. Tomorrow there will be lists on the pantry wall in Aldous' small square hand. Tomorrow there will be plates to warm and gloves to smooth and a board full of chalk arcs to read like weather. Tomorrow the carriages will come up the hill, and the great and hungry of the earth will put on their diamonds for half an hour of gold and 4 bites of fish. Tomorrow the fan will lie by her place and rise, and the chairs will go back like a breaking wave. But that's tomorrow. It can keep. Nothing is asked of you now, not one thing, until the 6 o'clock light finds the window. The night is the one service with no inspection. The same as last night, the same as every night this turning year, the same as all the nights ahead, stretching away down their own long corridor, warm dark door after warm dark door, further than any candle needs to see. The rain thickens softly on the leads, and it is a good sound, an old sound, the same sound it made on this roof when the Conqueror's men first raised timber on this hill, the same sound it will make when nobody remembers what a footman was. You pull the blanket to your chin. The candle flame stands still a moment in the draughtless dark and leans, and you lean with it. Let the castle hold still. It's good at that. Let the clocks keep the hours without you. They always have. Let the great table sleep in its felt and its vaults, and the chalk rest in its wooden groove, and the tin keep its sweetness in the dark of the shelf. Let the whole shining, starving, beautiful machine of it stand down till morning. You blow out the candle, and the dark that comes is friendly. Stay there a while, in that friendly dark, because this is where we can finally talk quietly, you and I, with the whole story behind us like a cleared table. Let the people go to their rest first. It's only mannerly. You've lived a year at their elbows. Aldous is asleep 2 floors below you, on his back, straight as a sword on a coffin. You'd bet Joe's 6pence on it. With his watch wound and his keys on the nightstand squared to the table's edge, and the pantry clock ticking through the wall for him alone, the way a shepherd sleeps best in the sound of his own flock. 30 years of dinners have folded themselves away in that plain room, night upon night, and folded away again tonight. 3 breaths left in him, he said. Let each one come slow. Coles is asleep in the little ground floor room they gave him when the stairs got long, with his candle boxes stacked by the door for the morning and nearly 60 years of this house breathing around him like an old coat. He'll wake before anyone and pretend he wasn't first. Let him have the quiet nights he spoke of. 14 covers and rain on the glass, all the way down. Annie is asleep in the maid's wing with her mending done, and her hands, pink from other people's hot water, finally still on the coverlet. Somewhere in her sensible dreams a tall fool from Norfolk is probably being told to sit there till he's finished. Let her sleep well. She is the best-fed heart in this castle, and doesn't know she's its whole argument. Pratt sleeps above his cellars like a dragon above a hoard, if dragons kept ledgers. Joe sleeps away in London in the gilded republic of long dinners, one household ahead of history as usual, and far along the state floor, past the double doors and the sleeping pictures, in a room with its window open to the night, because fresh air is a creed that never sleeps. A small old lady is asleep in the middle of her empire. Desk cleared, boxes done, dinner taken quickly, as ever, and grief and glory banked for the night like the fires. 60 years she has set the pace for every fork in this story. She's not setting anyone's pace now. Even she tonight keeps only her own. The whole table of them, laid down the length of the dark, each in their place, correct to the fair copy. Even the guests, wherever tonight found them, the bishop who lost his fish, the soldiers who bailed their soup, all the hungry honoured of the realm. Home now, or housed in state beds with Valets' chicken on the nightstand, fed at last by one arrangement or another, because the hungry of this story were only ever dinner hungry, and dinner hunger is the one kind the world always mends by midnight. The house is fully served at last. Nobody is standing at any wall, and now centuries will pass. They always do. It's the one thing they're reliable about. The world of that dining room will change beyond the recognition of anyone who stood in it. The powder will vanish from the footman's hair, and then most of the footmen will vanish after it, hired out of history a few at a time as quietly as they served. The gas will come, and then the electric light, and 200 feet of candle shadow will be abolished at the turn of a switch by a hand that never once trimmed a wick. The run will fall silent. The endless corridors will carry tourists instead of tureens, millions of them, shuffling in stockinged awe through St. George's Hall where the Baroness lost her soul, photographing the very sideboard, never once told by any guidebook that the grandest table in the world was for 60 years the hungriest room in England. But some of it, you'd be glad to know, refuses to die. The castle still stands on its hill, holding still, better at it than ever. The grand service still comes out of its vaults for the great nights. 4,000 pieces still counted by men who count for a living, and it still blazes down a long table exactly as it blazed for you. And the menus at royal banquets are still written in French, and the seating of the mighty is still an arithmetic that can wreck an evening or an alliance. And at formal tables, from palaces to rectories to your own grandmother's Sunday best, some ghost of the old rule walks yet. You know it. You felt it. The small pause before anyone lifts a fork, everyone's eyes flicking to the head of the table, the not starting before the host, the not leaving before the guest of honour. Every polite table on earth still keeps, in miniature, in courtesy, the law that Queen Victoria's dining room kept in iron. That a meal is not fuel, it is order, an agreement renewed nightly, that things are to be done properly. The guests she starved would recognise your dinner parties instantly. They'd just eat faster than you out of habit, because people don't change under the linen. People will still arrive hungry at tables that are really about something else, love, or power, or grief, or belonging, and leave feeling fed by everything except the food. Still watch the head of the table out of the corner of one eye. Still slip biscuits to the ones they love, against the rules, at midnight. Still measure their standing by where they're seated, and pretend not to. Still pack in one form or another the wise valet's cold chicken, the sandwich before the banquet, the snack before the wedding, the quiet insurance of everyone who has learned that the grander the table, the less it means to feed you. Still stand at walls in every century and every livery, waiters, nurses, drivers, clerks, the watchers and carriers of the world, invisible, indispensable, hungry on duty, better fed in the end than the people they serve, in every way that outlast a menu, and still find, at the close of the grandest days of their lives, that the moment they'd keep is a scrub table, low lamps, and somebody who noticed whether they ate. Some things don't change. The table doesn't change, only the chairs. And her, she goes on too, in her way. In the archives, sleeping their cream-coloured sleep down the corridor from where you lie. In 60 years of menus that fed almost nobody. In the memoirs of all those beautifully dressed hungry people. In the little sturdy statues in 1,000 town squares of the empire that was. And in this, that more than a century later, on the far side of the world, in a language of electric light she never lived to hear, people are being talked to sleep with the story of her dinners. She would think that very odd. She would, the household suspected, privately laugh. She liked courage at table, and it takes a kind of courage to close your eyes. So close them. You've been standing at the wall a long time tonight, in your borrowed gloves, on your borrowed feet, and no one is going to inspect you ever again. The dinner is over. The dinner has been over for 130 years. The plates are all counted home, every last piece of gold asleep in its felt. The chalk is wiped. The fan is folded. The small, quick figure at the head of the table rose long ago and went out at her own pace, past the sideboard, through the doors, into the part of the evening that doesn't need footmen. Nothing is carried now. Nothing is timed now. There is no run, no bell, no list, no late. The great machine is stood down, all of it, and the stone is holding still, and the rain is keeping the roof, and you are relieved of everything but breathing. So breathe, not the wall breath, the shallow, careful one you learned so as not to stir the candles. You can put that away with the livery now, the other kind, the below-stairs kind. The kind you breathed at the long scrubbed table with the lamps turned low and nothing left to be carried. Down past the collar, down past the ribs, slow in, slower out, the way the tide breathed on the private beach below the terraces, in no hurry, answerable to nobody, arriving and leaving at its own pace like the only monarch that ever mattered. In, and the castle rises half an inch around you, timbers easing, old stone shifting its shoulders. Out, and it settles again, and you settle with it, an inch deeper into the warm. In, and somewhere far below a banked fire breathes with you, orange and even, keeping its small faith till morning. Out, and the rain moves across the leads and away over the dark park, taking the last of the day with it, sweeping the long walk, combing the elms, going wherever the day's rains go. There is no course after this one. That's the mercy of this table. No bell, no next dish coming up the corridor, no hand about to go flat at the head of the room. The plate in front of you now is the night itself, full, warm, yours entirely, and here is the entire etiquette of it. No one may take it from you. Eat as slowly as you like. Nobody's going to ring. You kept the rules all day. Theirs, the world's, your own. Kept the pace, kept the face, kept the hands steady through everything the hours sent up the run at you. Whatever your livery looks like in your century, whatever wall you stood at today, whatever you carried, whoever finished before you were ready, you stood it, and it's over, and it came away clean. Inspections past. The candle has already moved on down the line, so let your hands go soft. They were steady all day. They've earned the night. Let them uncurl on the blanket the way they uncurled in that attic, palm up, open, holding nothing, asked for nothing. Let your face go empty the easy way now, not the servant's way, the sleeper's way. Let the jaw unclench, and the brow unknit, and the day slide off the front of you like a cloth drawn from a cleared table, slow and smooth, taking every crumb of it along. Let the sounds go next. Let the last voices in the house get further away, the way the good nights got further down the servants' hall one by one, doors closing kindly. Let the clocks keep the hours without you. They're honest. They'll manage. They always have. Let the pictures come and go as they please now, unservile, unscheduled, candle shadow, silver frost on black silk, heather, the bright water off the paddle boxes, a napkin of biscuits going up a dark stair. And don't hold any of them. They're not yours to clear. Let each one rise from in front of you, light as a lie, and be borne away, and don't call after it. Not even the best of them. Not the fan stirring on white damask. Let it lift and go. Not the long gold table under its wrecked candlelight. Let it darken shelf by shelf. Not the hillside. Not the mist walking the ridges. Not the old voice in the corridor saying you stood it well tonight. Let them all be gathered up by careful gloved hands and carried out through the baize door at the far end of your thoughts, softly, in procession, at the unhurried pace of things that are finished and were done properly. That's how a good day is cleared, course by course, without regret. Nothing is coming back tonight, and nothing needs to. And when the last picture has gone down the run, and the serving room of your mind stands empty, shelves shadowed, clock ticking to itself, one lamp turned low, leave it so. Don't tidy anything else. Even Aldous locks the door at last and climbs his stairs and lets the house belong to the dark. The night watch needs no footman. The stone will mind the silence. The rain will mind the roof. You're warm enough, there under your own roof, in your own century. Fed enough, one way or another, by the day you've had. Safe enough this hour in the dark that came friendly. That's the whole inspection, and you've passed it. And it's more than most of the crowned heads of Europe could say at bedtime. And it's enough. It is enough. It's enough. Tomorrow will come up the hill in its carriage, hungry and hopeful, the way it always does. Tomorrow there will be its lists and its little urgencies, its chalk to be revised, its plates to be warmed, its half-hours that feel like empires, and its empires that pass like half-hours. Tomorrow the world will once again want everything done at the double. Let it wait in the corridor with the rest of the procession. It goes in by precedence, and tonight sleep outranks it. Sleep outranks everything. Sleep has been longest at this court. Sleep was in service here before the Conqueror, before the Garter, before the first joint of beef ever stood its cold watch on an English sideboard, and it has never once lost its place on the board. Sleep is served first in this house. Nothing interrupts it. Nothing is taken away. The same as last night. This going down. The same as the nights of 1897, when the kings slept off their hunger under one roof, and the tin stood open in the pantry. The same as the nights of 1837, when a girl of 18 slept her first sleep as queen, and the whole long dinner of the century was still unserved. The same as every nightstone has stood on that hill, servants and sovereigns going down the same dark stairs at last, one candle each, to the one table where every place is equal and every plate is full. You're at yours now. It's held for you. It's always held for you. So let it come. Let sleep take you the way the tide took the solent light. Slowly, evenly, without one sound you could point to, until the shore you were watching is somewhere behind you, and the water is holding all your weight. Let it take you the way the dark took the corridors behind Coles's candle. Not all at once, never all at once, but door by door, picture by picture, a yard at a time, each yard warmer than the last, the little moving room of light going on ahead of you at an old man's kindly pace, in no hurry to arrive. Let it take you the way the household took its supper, at leisure, at last, elbows on the board, everything hurried all day, finally allowed to be slow. Let the castle fade, let the gold fade, let the long table sink back into its brown dark with the kings and the horses and the dead admirals, gently, gently, frames giving back the last of the light. Let the noise of the world go down the run, dish by dish, door by door, further and fainter, until it is only a rumour of silver somewhere, being put away by careful hands. Let your thoughts slow to the pace of an old man's candle in a long corridor. Let them lean and soften and stand still a moment in the draughtless dark. And finally, like the flame, let them stop. You've earned this rest. You've earned it the long way, the servant's way, mile by corridor mile. Take it. It's yours. It was carried up all this way just for you, and it's still warm. And dream, if you dream at all, of a good table, long and lit and unhurried, with your name on a card in a fine small hand, and every seat the best seat, and nobody watching anybody's fork, and all the time in the world. Everyone you've ever fed is there, and everyone who ever fed you. The soup arrives hot, all the way hot, every yard of every corridor defeated at last. The bread is warm, the undercut is saved for you. Someone you love tells you to sit there till you've finished, and you do, and it takes hours, and no hand goes flat, and no plate is lifted, and when at long last you lean back, full and warm and done, nobody rises. The whole table just sits on in the candlelight, talking quietly, in no hurry whatsoever, the way the blessed and the well-fed talk, while somewhere far off a piper walks the dark outside the windows, and an honest old clock ticks on, unwatched, keeping time for nobody, because nobody at that table will ever be late for anything again. The Queen dines again tomorrow. You don't. Sleep in. Good night.